I'm joking yesterday that they've, done a lot in re-signing their long snapper, and that was really it.
Kick returner, that's good. Kick returner too.
I cannot forget about Turpin as well. But we do have a trade we want to talk about that we're just seeing here. The Bills are going to get a 5th and future 7th round pick from the Cowboys for Kaiir Elam and a 6th rounder. So, Pete, your initial thoughts on that full trade?
Kaiir Elam has been a bust. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. He was a high first-round pick. They drafted him ahead of Christian Benford, who has ended up being a better player, and now when they went into the lineup, he didn't play very well. So major disappointment, and I think that when you look at it from that point, the Cowboys are trying to, get a guy because they lost Jordan Lewis in free agency to Jacksonville. They're trying to get a guy to try and step in and play. But so far, the only way to look at Elam is as a bust.
Danny?
Yeah, Trayvon Diggs, back-to-back seasons with an ACL. This is trying to add some depth there. You know what this feels like to me? They was selectively aggressive. I think this feels cheap. Like they're trying to find guys that they can find value in, get them pretty cheaply. That's not a lot to give up to bring them in there, so they add a piece to the puzzle. But this is not going to do anything to change really the Cowboys' outlook as far as, wow, this moves the needle in the free agent market or the trade market at all.
Hopefully his talent shows up in a new destination. He said
he's a talented kid. He just hasn't been able to. He hasn't made plays when he's been on the field, and for that reason, he hasn't been on the field as much. And when he has, he hasn't played well.
Would Cooper Kupp do much for them? He's now a free agent.
They need to get another receiving option, and so I would explore that if I were the Cowboys. I don't think there's any question they need another option to help take some of the pressure and the coverage away from CeeDee Lamb. But
that one makes a ton of sense.
Yeah,
I think.
Okay, Kyle. Cooper Kupp to the Cowboys?
I agree with these guys. Cooper Kupp anywhere. He's a coach and a player.
Problem is he doesn't run, so you better have somebody that can run.
Knock his butt off.
You better have somebody who can run on the other side.
Eastern today, but the NFL did not make us wait until then to begin making moves. So what's already happened just becomes official when the clock strikes 4 on the East Coast. But there are still plenty of deals to work out and trades to make. And, well, fans love to win the offseason, but the ultimate goal is being the ultimate winner headed into next offseason. The early Super Bowl odds have the Eagles back-to-back, the Ravens and Chiefs both at plus 700. Then we've got the Bills, Lions, and 49ers. Here are the notable moves by some of these contenders. A lot of turnover on the Eagles defense. Not a lot of turnovers. They do a lot of turnovers, in that Super Bowl. Joe Thuney is out in Kansas City. Ravens keep Ronnie Stanley, adding D-Hop. Bills with some pass rush help and holding on to their quarterback for many, many years and many, many dollars. Let's welcome in Pete Prisco and Kyle Long to the discussion and going through some of these teams and some of the moves that they made to hopefully re-up and get back in Super Bowl position, starting with the Eagles. Their Super Bowl defense is elsewhere around the league, but with so much depth, how much of a drop-off do you actually expect there to be?
Well, I'm not very concerned about the Philadelphia Eagles because I just heard Pete talking on another show the other day that the Philadelphia Eagles are a lot better than we all thought, and they're a great football team. And while they are missing some pieces coming into the offseason, it's the cost of winning Super Bowls. It's the cost of being a champion. The kids say it costs to be a boss, Pete. And that's what the Philadelphia Eagles are. They're still able to retain the great part of that center of that defense. Zach Bond obviously re-signed. A lot of these guys going off the roster, but with the way they develop talent, the coaching level in Philadelphia, that matters, Pete.
Yeah, and you look at these guys. Okay, Josh Sweat, Hunt will replace him. He played really well. You saw him come down the stretch. He had a sack in the Super Bowl. Milton Williams, they have some young players. Plus, they have 2 starters that are ready to go in the middle in there with, Carter and Davis.
Yep.
Rodgers was a backup anyways. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, they like Sidney Brown. He was hurt last year, coming off an injury, didn't play as much. They're ready to replace him. Plus, Howie Roseman does such a great job of drafting and replacing that I don't think you have to worry about the Eagles.
The Chiefs, who also played in the Super Bowl, reworking some contracts to clear up some money, about $50 million between Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones. So what do you think about what they've done with that extra cash so far?
Well, I think they had to address the left tackle position, and they did. They got a young guy. Now, there's some questions about him. He stepped in and did some good things for Trent Williams last year. Jalen Moore, I think he will start at left tackle. And what that does is it allows them to move Suamatia. Go ahead.
It's Kingsley Suamataia.
Suamataia.
There you go.
There you go. I said that wrong about 8 times. times, but
it's tough
because it's
Good thing
pronounced a
Kyle's
bunch of ways when you go online and look at it. By the way, but he's going to move to left guard. That makes them bigger. That makes them stronger. That makes them better. And I think that's a smart thing for them. The offensive line was a major issue. We saw that in the Super Bowl. And then you go get Fulton to play corner. Fulton from the Chargers, Christian Fulton will go in there now, and you can move McDuffie back inside in obvious passing situations, and I think that helps them as well. So I think the Chiefs have had a nice, you bring back Hollywood Brown, they've had a nice offseason so far.
And you know what? I think it's important to look backwards to get an idea of what we're going to be looking at ahead with the Kansas City Chiefs. And people like to compare this Chiefs dynasty to the Patriots dynasty. Obviously, they got a great quarterback and all these guys that can fit in Spags' defense, and obviously Andy Reid getting the most out of the offensive side of the ball. And when you look at Patrick Mahomes, it's awesome to see a guy like him saying, hey, you know what, I can restructure. And restructure can mean any number of things, but it's going to make it easier for Brett Veach and the people in the cap room in Kansas City to make these big acquisitions happen. Then you get it on the defensive side of the ball with Chris Jones, and that's the two captains of both sides of the ball committing to it, the two highest paid guys. That's huge for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think it bodes well for them.
Yeah, you know what restructure means? Give me more cash up front and just restructure.
We'll figure it out on the back end.
Well, any player will take that all day.
Yeah, no one's taking any pay cuts.
No.
Price only goes up,
necessarily. Yeah, they did not donate that extra $50 million to help, but that's what the cap guys are for, is to move that money around and to make it work. The other team in the AFC that has the same amount of Super Bowl odds, the Ravens, their key moves so far have been on the offensive side of the ball. Kyle, what do you think of these moves?
Well, it's the blind side. Ronnie Stanley, he's been an absolute stud since the day he walked out of Notre Dame's doors. He was taught by Harry Heastand. To get him back into the building, the left tackle that Lamar Jackson, the MVP, or could have been the MVP, is familiar with. That's a big deal for Baltimore. And I know it's a guy who's leaning on the wrong side of 30 here, but this dude can play football. These guys don't grow on trees. To get him back was huge for that football team. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins at the bottom of the list is a big one, but there were moments in the biggest moments of the season where he didn't show up for the Kansas City Chiefs. And Pat Ricard, obviously a no-brainer, big part of your identity in Baltimore.
But this is all about Stanley and retaining him. Now, the question with Stanley is, Stanley played every game last year. In the past, Stanley hasn't played every game, and there have been some people who've questioned whether he's really been truly hurt at times. So he has to stay on the field. If he stays on the field, fine. But was that a contract year where he pushed to get the big money? Who knows, but we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see what happens with the Bills as well. A little pass rush shuffle. Joey Bosa is coming in. Von Miller is going out. I'll be devil's advocate here. Joey Bosa has missed 23 games over the last 2 seasons due to injury. So what should we think about that?
But it's a one-year deal, and so there's really no risk there, and they need him in bubble wrap until the playoffs. That's what they need to do. Joey,
that's what we said about Von, too.
Take the whole season, take the entire season, get yourself ready for the playoffs. I think it's a great move for them, and I even put that out there a while ago. I thought Joey Bosa to the Bills made a lot of sense. In talking to the Bills people at the Combine, 2 things they wanted to get. They wanted to get better rushing the passer, and they wanted to get somebody at receiver who could go down the field a little bit more than what they had. They went out and they got Josh Palmer, and on the surface doesn't look like a great move, but he's 25 years old. He's averaged over 15 yards per catch the last 2 seasons, and so that tells you he can get down the field. That'll help open up the offense, and I think getting Bosa is big for them. Ogunjobi in the middle, they just signed him as well. That helps their defense in the middle as well. So I like what they did, but more than anything, they took care of their own. I mean, Shakir, Bernard, Russo all get new contracts.
That's a whole stampede of bison right there.
Yeah.
By the way, they're not buffaloes. In the United States of America, we call them bison, and I think there's a lot of misnomers out there about that. And that's what we call a stampede.
Is that your analysis from
That's
this
what we call a stampede right there.
You want to change the name?
But I will say this. Me and Pete sat here on this very desk and said that the only reason the Buffalo Bills wouldn't be able to hoist that Lombardi trophy was because of the fact that they couldn't manufacture a pass rush, whether it's winning with a single guy or being able to scheme up some stuff. Now they bring in a guy, and to your credit, you gave Von Miller credit. We were going to give him the benefit of the doubt. They never really showed up the way that we wanted that rush to show up. Hopefully Joey Bosa can stay in the bubble wrap, and come the time when Josh Allen's maybe winning another MVP, this guy can go get you 3-4 sacks in a flurry of games.
Yeah, I love the move. I really do.
I heard the word hope here. Did they get better for their pass rush?
I feel like it's a lateral move, honestly.
I think he's better.
If you're talking about when you need the biggest plays in the biggest moments. Von Miller can beat those guys.
But he didn't
He's
last
got
year.
that rush.
He didn't last
We don't know
year.
if Joey Bosa is going to make it to that point.
Yeah, well,
and this is why it's a prove-it year.
Yeah, he's got to stay on the field, no question about that. But Von Miller wasn't the same guy. He just wasn't. And I love Von Miller. He's one of my favorite guys that I've ever dealt with in this league. But he'd be probably the first one to admit it. He wasn't the same guy.
All right. How about the Lions? Back end of the defense, the secondary, bringing in DJ Reed, a handful of other moves for this team. How did Detroit get better?
Well, I think you have to understand what kind of football team this is. They're going to score a lot of points, and we saw that. And even without Ben Johnson, they still retain that offensive line. So other teams are going to be throwing that thing all over the yard, trying to play catch-up with Jared Goff and his offense. So to be able to retain guys and then be able to add pieces on that back end, you're seeing DJ Reed highlighted right there. It's a big-time thing for this Lions team. There is no substitute for a good back end. I mean, you can rush all day, but if guys are wide open, you can throw that thing up. They're not going to let that thing happen in Detroit like they did at the end of the year.
Health is the biggest difference for this team. They lost their coordinators, but they need the guys on defense, mainly Hutchinson and McNeil, to get back and be healthy. And if they do, they'll be fine on the defensive side of the ball. They have some issues that you're concerned, a little bit of concern, though. When you look at the offensive line, you love the offensive line. You know, what are they going to do with Zeitler? Is he going to come back? What are they going to do? The age is starting to creep in there. The left guard wasn't very good last year. You know, Decker's getting up in the years. So you're starting to get a little concerned about the offensive line. But I think this organization knows that. They'll address it. And they'll get guys in the draft.
I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the 49ers when the new league year officially opens up, because so far it seems like a lot more out than in. But of course, a lot of that has to do with what's happening with the quarterback and Brock Purdy. Micah Parsons acknowledging that, saying no more rookie quarterback. LOL, welcome to reality. I would maybe push back and say that there's a lot of teams in the league that don't have rookie quarterbacks. They're still able to make moves. What say you, Pete?
You look at everybody's killing the 49ers, but really when you go down the list, go each individual guy that they've lost. Charvarius Ward is a good player, but didn't play very well last year, in large part because he had a lot of stuff going on off the field. Dre Greenlaw didn't play last year, remember? He was hurt. He played a game and a half. Hafunga was hurt last year, didn't play a lot last year. Banks was their worst offensive lineman. I thought the Packers overpaid for him. Elijah Mitchell, the backup. Joshua Dobbs is backup. You know, Deebo Samuel was 20 pounds too heavy last year and didn't play like himself. So when you really evaluate the guys, they lost. Jalen Moore, another one that he was a backup if Trent Williams was on the field. Did they really lose all that much? They really didn't.
They're just it's going to be a new look, but same big-time players there. But as you said, guys like Dre Greenlaw, you counted on to be healthy. They weren't healthy. The Niners are going to have to figure out that window has closed. They need to figure out a new window to get into the dance with.
And then you look at their defensive line; those guys are gone too. Malik Collins and you know Hargrave and Leonard Floyd. They let go. Why? They couldn't stop the run. Not one of those guys was that great against the run, and so they're just revamping what they do. Don't worry about the Niners; they still have stars on that team.
You're less worried about what's going out. What about what's coming in? Do you still need to see more from this team?
Yeah, I'd like to see some more moves. I think they need to address some particularly corner. I think that's a position they need to address. I think they will in the draft. And but you know, again, Kittle, Trent Williams, Fred Warner, McCaffrey, he's on the field. They have stars still. Yeah. They still can make plays, and they still will be a factor.
I think the writing's on the wall for the San Francisco 49ers. We saw McCaffrey and big pieces in that offense deal with a lot of health issues last year. Moving forward, can we count on Christian McCaffrey to be that same prolific day